In this video, we're going to be talking about the zero exponent rule, which says that anything to the zero power equals 1. And I often get the question, why? So, let's think about just some basics. Anything divided by itself is 1, correct? So if I had x squared divided by x squared, that should equal 1. But I also learned the quotient rule, which says that if I'm subtracting things with the same base, I can subtract their exponents. So that same problem, x squared divided by x squared, I would subtract 2 minus 2 and get 0. If this has to be true and that has to be true, I started with the same amount, then x to the 0 power has to be equal to 1. So that's where that comes from. So let's go ahead and use that rule. Y to the 0 power. Guess what? Anything to the 0 power is 1. 17 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is 1. The quantity 4 times x times y to the 5th to the 0 power. All of that is in parentheses. It equals 1. Again, anything to the 0 power equals 1. Coming down here, you could use the quotient rule or just recognize that we have y cubed divided by y cubed is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. Throw some coefficients into the mix. I have 24 times p to the 5th divided by negative 3 times p to the 5th. Again, we divide the coefficients, so that's just straight division. 24 divided by negative 3 is a negative 8. And p to the 5th divided by p to the 5th, anything divided by itself is 1. So we end up with just p to the 5th. Negative 8. I don't know why I said p to the 5th. Down here, this one's a little bit trickier. It doesn't look tricky, but it is. So I have negative x to the 0 power. Now the question is, what is getting that 0 power? Is that negative a part of that or not? Here's the idea. Exponents only apply to what they're next to. So if I had parentheses then of negative 2 to the 0 power, that negative is inside the parentheses and that parentheses is getting the 0 power. So this would be just 1. But in our example, there are no parentheses. So that exponent only applies to the x. So x to the 0 power is 1, and I want the negative of that. So I end up with negative 1. So that one was kind of tricky because there are no parentheses there. The negative does not get the exponent. Down below, anything to the 0 power is 1. So that q to the 0 power, I can cross that out. That is a 1. Looking at the rest, I have negative 18 divided by 3. I would get negative 6 in the numerator. Then p squared divided by p to the 4th, we subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2, but I had more p's in the denominator, so those p's stay downstairs. And then q to the 6th was the only q because the other one was 1. So I end up with negative 6q to the 6th power divided by p squared. Go ahead and try the examples on the right-hand side. Back to the top of the page. P to the 0 power is 1. 8 to the 0 power is 1. That whole quantity, negative 3 times x cubed times y to the 7th, is still 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. X to the 9th divided by x to the 9th. Anything divided by itself is 1. Negative 16y to the 7th divided by 8y to the 7th. Well, y to the 7th divided by y to the 7th is 1. Negative 16 divided by 8 is negative 2. Moving down to the next section, I have negative r to the 0 times s cubed all over 6 to the 0 times s. So let's knock out those r to the 0's and 6 to the 0. R to the 0 is 1. Notice that negative is still there. It does not get the exponent. Only the r does. 6 to the 0 is 1. What's left? We have 1 negative. So overall, that will end up negative. S cubed divided by s. 3 minus 1 would be 2. So s squared. Negative s squared. Last one. B to the 0 is 1. I cross it out. 2/10. So a 2 will divide out of numerator and denominator, and I end up with 1/5. So that 5 ends up in the denominator. You could put the 1 if you wanted, but 1 times anything is going to be itself. Actually, I'm going to put the 1 there. And then m to the 6th divided by m to the 6th is 1. And then lastly, I have this lonely b to the 4th that is in the denominator. It needs to stay in the denominator. So I end up with 1 divided by 5b to the 4th.